So, good evening. Welcome to another Facebook Live. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Rick Cardwell and I'm a counsellor and therapist. I deal with stress, anxiety, depression, and I'm a relationship specialist. So, this is really a follow on from the last couple of Facebook Lives, really. There's been a real interest in narcissism and narcissistic relationships. And I've kind of been answering questions quite a lot over the last couple of days, which I found really interesting and kind of misunderstanding of what narcissism is and how narcissistic behavior affects relationships. So, perhaps I was a bit naive in thinking that there was more understanding about narcissism than what there actually is, seemingly. But anyway, so the last two videos seem to be very helpful for quite a lot of people, which is good news. So for this one, I kind of want to continue the theme of narcissism. And I just want to explain a little bit, broadly speaking, about why narcissists behave the way that they do, and then go on to explain to you how their conditioning affects the way that they think and feel about the important issues that make a relationship work. So kind of putting the narcissist in a relationship of what should happen in a relationship, but actually what they feel about it. I hope that makes sense, and hopefully it'll become clearer as we go through the video. So why do narcissists behave the way that they do, and what's the causes for that? Well, narcissism is it's a popular personality trait, let's say, and all of us have an element of narcissism within us, either through being a child or being through adolescence. We all have elements of narcissism. It is part of a healthy personality. With narcissists who have got behavioral problems, so that could be a narcissistic personality disorder, which is the top end of the spectrum of narcissism, where the extremes of narcissistic behaviors happen, and that's more easily recognized, and more severe behaviors with more severe outcomes, what we call NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. So, and that is a registered mental pathological disorder, a mental health issue, and that's if you've got that, basically you're pretty stuffed as far as changes goes. So let's remember then, and this is the key that I want you to remember: never ever get this out of your mind about narcissists, because if somebody is a narcissist, what that means is they always, 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 always have to have control, and they always, always, always have to get their own way. And that is full stop, that their whole existence is driven to get control and have their own way. And they also have very low levels of empathy. So what that means is that they don't care about anybody at all, full stop, apart from themselves. Now, they'll give you pseudo care and pseudo love, which are token gestures of love and care to make you think that they feel a certain way, and that's part of the element of control. But when you actually break down those statements or acts of love, they're very hollow, very shell-like. There's nothing in that love and that empathy for yourself. It's all geared to creating control for the narcissist. So it's like a smoke screen of behavior so that they can control you and basically get their own way. So that's quite scary when you think about that. And as I've said in the other videos, narcissists are extremely clever, as are abusive relationships, in the way that they introduce you into a relationship and slowly break you down, and eventually the red flags appear. They break your personality down piece by piece, very slowly, so they don't begin to recognize that, alienate you from your friends, stop you doing the things that you enjoy, so that you're completely controlled by them and you don't have any support network around you. So why do narcissists become narcissists, let's say? Okay, so there's quite a lot of research around narcissism and personality types, and it is measured on a spectrum. So what that means is you can have very low level narcissism and very high level narcissism and everything in between. Like I said before, the top level narcissism is a personality disorder, but there's everything in between, and there are aggressive narcissists and passive aggressive narcissists. So an aggressive narcissist will be physically violent, but the majority of narcissists are passive aggressive, which means that when they get angry, they will stomp about like a spoilt 2-year-old, or they'll give you the silent treatment. And that's the way that they display they're angry. Generally speaking, they don't result to physical violence, but every other manipulative tactic is in their armory to get control over you. And that's the most common type. So narcissists are anything between 40 and 60% of narcissism within a narcissist is actually in the DNA. They're born with an element. So let's say about 50% of the narcissistic traits are actually in them when they're born. And that's hereditary. So mum and dad, or mum or dad, may have narcissistic traits. But it seems to be that it can be measured, and it is in the personality from being born. So it's actually in the genes. So it's inbuilt from birth. You're kind of wired that way in some respect. So what happens then is this wiring of narcissism that is then developed through the growing up years, the very young years. Now, I'll just go into a few things about how that happens, just to give you a little bit of an understanding about it. So as they begin to grow up, they may experience extremes, or what we call extremes and expectations. So when it comes to them being taught, say, to be tidy, they're either extremely tidy, everything has to be perfectly tidy, or they're extremely untidy. Or if they have to, cleanliness, for example, they're extremely clean, or they're extremely unclean. So narcissists have these extreme expectations in behaviour, and they manifest that in their personality. And that is, it's a learned behaviour that's taken to an extreme. So they learn a behaviour and take it to extreme to create that personality. So they can either have very high standards or very low standards. High standards are where they're particularly fussy, and low standards where they just can't be bothered and everything is meaningless to them. But either one of those personalities is typical of narcissistic behaviour. So they learn a lot of their behaviours from their peers, so usually mother and father, and other influential figures in their life. Now remember, the mother and father will have the genetics as well, so chances are that mum and dad have narcissistic traits, that they are subconsciously going to teach that child those behaviours as it grows up. And the child is going to pick those up from mum and dad and learn those narcissistic behaviours. Now, it could also be that the parental or peer close family relationships have what we call intermittent reinforcement. Now, what that means, intermittent reinforcement means, is that one day they are treated extremely kindly, and then the next day they could be treated completely unkindly. Or they are shown a lot of attention, and then they're shown a lot of not being attended to. So they experience these extreme behaviours in lots of areas of their life, which causes them to have to take control themselves at a very young age because of these extremes. They can't find a balance in it, so their decision in their mind is to take control themselves, and then they learn to take control. And they've often been subject to high levels of irritability. So if a parent or a peer is very irritable or annoyed very easily or agitated, and they've had high levels of those in their upbringing. Impatience is another one. If they're brought up with a lot of impatience, if people around them can't be patient, then they learn these things from these authority figures, and this helps to fuel the narcissistic behaviour. And this is likely to create the levels of anger that a narcissist are capable of. But as I said before, that the anger is often expressed through passive aggressive behaviours, which means the silent treatment or ignoring you, stonewalling you, staying out of your way, and that's the way that they control their anger. But by doing those things, it's also a form of controlling you to make you wonder what's going on, or have you upset them, or have you hurt them, etc. And what that also means is that they're generally brought up with feelings of guilt and shame. So that could be parents that have lauded guilt onto them, put shame onto them. And once they've developed those initial feelings of shame, then it's easy for them to associate guilt with everything and shame with everything. And those are some of the personality traits that are really deep within inside them that have formed their personality. So when a lot of these things come together, you'll get somewhere on the spectrum a narcissist and narcissistic behaviour. The main thing about narcissists is that they've never learned to take responsibility. They've never hit the age of responsibility for their actions. And when it comes to their behaviours, they are not able to take responsibility for those behaviours. So if you can imagine a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old having a tantrum because he can't get his own way, that's because he's not yet learned to take responsibility for his behaviour. Well, that's a narcissist. For some reason, they've never taken responsibility, and they're always going to behave immaturely and understand that they must always get their own way. Everything is all about them. The world revolves about them. Everything that they care about is themselves, but they don't have this ability to take responsibility. So they are constantly like a tantruming toddler that can't get their own way in an adult body, using adult manipulative tactics to get their own way, to get control. So they learn manipulation. They learn manipulation from the parents, from the peers, from TV shows, from games, video games, or from watching other children, and they hone in on manipulation and learn it. They make a note of it, and they learn that skill, that manipulative skill, as part of their personality to develop for later on in life, so that they're able to control and manipulate people very easily. And it becomes a focus of their life from a very young age to learn to control and to learn to manipulate people. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So the question that I was asked, I think it was today, anyway, can a narcissist actually love somebody other than themselves? And I thought that was a good question. So I've actually looked at some research on this, some decent research, American research on narcissistic behaviours. And I'll kind of explain it, why a narcissist cannot love somebody. Now, a narcissist will say they love you, and they'll make the noises like that and do some of the behaviours that make you feel like that way. But as I said, that's very hollow, very shallow, and it's often a way of making you feel a bit secure or putting some trust into the relationship so that they can take that back to control you, which is a classic narcissistic behaviour. So I want to try and put that into perspective for you by explaining it a bit more real time, if you like. So because a narcissist has always got to have control, always got to have everything their own way, they must make all the decisions on everything because they are the best at everything, and they have these delusions of grandeur, of power and of success. You can never challenge that. If you disagree with a narcissist, how they view that is that you are rejecting them. They view it as rejection. And what that means to them as a narcissist is that because you have rejected them and your behaviour towards them indicates that you reject them, then they are not going to love someone who rejects them. Why would they love someone who rejects them? That's how they think and that's how they feel. Now, they don't manifest that in a conscious way. It's an inner feeling, an inner trait, an inner behaviour that they, because of their mindset, you reject me, you obviously don't care about me because you're not bowing to my needs. So I'm not going to love you because you reject me. And they'll think in a way that unless you do everything that they want you to do, absolutely everything without compromise, that then you are offensive, you're disgusting, you're vulgar, you're unfaithful. You see it as an unfaithfulness, and they won't love someone who they perceive to be unfaithful or disgusting or vulgar, which is what goes on in their mind, purely because you've not accepted that everything they do is perfect and right, and you must do everything that they say. And of course, they will blame you and accuse you of behaving in a way that destroys the relationship. And of course, it's always your fault because they are not able to take responsibility because there's still that 2-year-old tantruming child who doesn't have the ability to take responsibility for their own actions. So let's put that into relationships. So I want to just have a look at a list of some of the things that make a healthy relationship and explain to you why a narcissist cannot meet that criteria for a healthy relationship. So I hope that makes sense, that narcissists don't contribute to making healthy relationships because they are unable to meet the criteria for a healthy relationship. And I just want to go through a list of those just to help you have an idea about why narcissists think and feel about relationships and why the relationships with narcissists just aren't healthy. So, because a narcissist is unable to love, okay, we've explained that, he's unable to love for the reasons we've talked about. That means that there's no equality in the relationship. Now, a good relationship, a healthy relationship, has to have levels of equality where there is respect for each other and you see each other's point of view, where that you may have disagreements, but there's a level of equality that is healthy, that helps you to point out each other's faults so that you can learn from your mistakes and build on those mistakes to make the relationship healthier as you move forward together. There has to be a level of equality. But a narcissist, because he's unable to love, cannot see that equality, and he's not prepared to grow and change anyway because he's already perfect. So he will never accept that there has to be equality in the relationship because he's better than that. Everything that you do must be his way because he knows more. So you'll never get to equality. When you don't get to levels of equality, you don't grow together, you don't learn together, and the relationship doesn't develop. So when they behave like that, they are illustrating the childlike way of reasoning and not taking responsibility for the behaviour. And narcissists don't have coping skills. They're just like that child. They'll go defensive and they will attack you verbally by criticism, slagging you off to other people, not taking your point of view at all. Your emotions don't count. They never consider your emotions. So they'll attack you and try and destroy you and blame everything on you, or they'll run and hide, which is another tactic as well. But that's built around guilt, to try and make you feel guilty to get the control back within the relationship. They don't know how to cope, and if they don't get their own way, they just don't know how to deal with that, which is why they'll just go to these childlike behaviours of anger or running away because they've got no coping mechanisms. So another quality that you have to have in a relationship, and for those of you that are in relationships or been in relationships for a long time, is that you have to have a level of patience, because we're very different people. We clash a lot, and we have to be patient with each other to learn about each other and to develop. And healthy relationships are formed, and a primary foundational thing within a relationship is trust. And trust isn't something that just happens. Trust is built with patience over a long period of time to help you put lots of building blocks in place so that you can build a healthy relationship on trust. Well, that takes patience. Now, the narcissistic way of thinking is very, very impatient because they already know that they are perfect. Everything about them is the best that can be. Nobody can be any better. So they don't have to be patient for anything because they've already got in their mind this idea of grandiose perfection. So they don't need to be patient because they can just tell you what to do now and the world will be perfect because everything needs to be their way. So they have no patience, and their attitude is, I deserve things now and I deserve everything my way. no patience at all. So if there's no patience, then you're not going to build any trust into a relationship. You don't build trust into a relationship, it isn't going to work full stop, because it's a foundational factor of relationships. Another key ingredient to a really healthy relationship, that I think is one of the most important factors, is the ability to have empathy for people that you love. So the ability to have empathy and to show empathy means that you are able to look at a partner and understand that they have emotions, and sometimes those emotions might be that they're not feeling so good, or they need support, or they need care, or they need to talk to you. And you need to be able to, empathy means that you can put yourself in their place to try and understand how they feel, so that the two of you can connect in a healthy way to work through issues. And empathy for me is very, very important, because that's what makes connections and builds the trust as well. So it's really important. But a narcissist doesn't have the ability for empathy, because empathy to a narcissist is seen as a sign of weakness and vulnerability. If you are prepared to show that you care and show empathy, it suggests that you are vulnerable. And a narcissist cannot show that he is vulnerable at any level, because if he or she shows that vulnerability, it suggests that they don't have total control over you, that they're not the puppet master pulling the strings, and they're coming alongside you with those levels of equality within the relationship, which they don't want. They'll never go there, and they'll never want that in the relationship. So they are unable to show empathy, and that means they just don't care for anyone at all but themselves. Yes, they'll make the noises. Yes, they'll make the pseudo gestures of saying the right things and doing the right things. But ultimately, that is only ever to get you to a place where they can control you and manipulate you. Full stop. That is it. So another factor that makes up a healthy relationship is helpfulness. Okay. So we need to be helpful to each other within a relationship, because if you think about the opposite of that, then not being helpful means that you've two separate lives and you're two separate entities. So being helpful within a relationship, supportive, is another building block for a healthy relationship. But narcissists will be helpful. They'll show helpfulness in certain areas, and certainly at the beginning of the relationship to allow some invasion into your privacy, so they can work out what you're all about, to be able to destroy you. But when a narcissist shows helpfulness, the only reason they're doing that is because there is going to be a very expensive payoff. They are doing something because they want something with a large interest rate attached to it. And that's the way that they think and feel, because that control issues, those manipulation issues. I am going to do something, but I want a payback with a large interest attached to it. And that's the main reason that they do something. So they can be perceived as, quite helpful, quite certainly very charming. That's a main issue of any narcissist. Male or female can be very charming. But the helpfulness is always about, what am I going to get out of this for myself to be able to make my life better and to give me more control? And that happens more at the beginning of the relationship than the end, because there needs to be more of that deception at the beginning of the relationship to allow you to be vulnerable, to be opened up, so that the narcissist can basically chip away at you and break you down. And there's always a payoff for them being helpful. And that might be after a row. If you've had a disagreement or a row, then part of the cycle that the narcissist will go through is to be helpful, to suck you back into that cycle of abuse, that cycle of control that they have. So there's always a big payoff when they're trying to be helpful. That's the same principle as well for friendliness. When they're helpful or friendly, it's all about themselves. I'm being friendly to you because I want something from you, and I'm going to get you to a place where I can get you controlled and have everything my own way. So narcissists as well, when it comes to generosity, by the same token, will only ever see being generous as an investment for the future for themselves. When they are generous, they have in their mind that if I do this, I will get something back that is much greater than the value I've invested, because everything is about them. That's the way that they think, and that's what they want. So you may see their generosity or their gift as something of kindness, or aren't they, lovely people, lovely lady, lovely woman, lovely bloke, whatever it is. But that's not their agenda, is not to be kind or to be generous. It's purely to get you to a place of where they can get more out of you than what they've given. So we talked before about trust. Now, narcissists have a major problem with trust, a real problem with trust. And when it comes to trust, is narcissists expect you to trust them implicitly, absolutely 100%, but they are not prepared to trust you. And why that is, again, is the vulnerability factor. Because if they are putting trust in somebody, that means investing in somebody's life where you become vulnerable again, and you're opening yourself up to vulnerability. Well, a narcissist, first of all, doesn't want to do that because they're basically cowards and they live in fear. And secondly, he won't do that because that's relinquishing some control. So when it comes to trust, they won't trust anybody. They'll make the noises, the pseudo noises, and say the right things, and often make you feel a certain way. But ultimately, they won't trust anyone because they can't stand the thought of being vulnerable. Vulnerability affects their complete demand for control and authority over you. So trust is not within the psyche of a narcissist. Again, another condition that you have to have in a healthy relationship is respect. Now, narcissists have respect for nobody but themselves. They will respect you only when you are doing absolutely everything that they demand that you do. When you are completely controlled, when you have no will of your own, when you are broken and you are completely submissive to them, doing absolutely everything they want, then they will respect that. Now, that respect is in inverted commas because that's not a respect at all. That means they've broken you and they have got you exactly where they want to be. So there's no respect for anything that narcissists have respect for anything for, because again, they don't have that function in the head. It's overridden by the vulnerability and the fear and the desire for total conquest, world domination, shall we say, and control over you as an individual and everybody else as well, for that matter. And as far as commitment goes, another thing, you know that healthy relationships work on commitment, and if you're committed to a relationship, that's going to work really well. Well, they don't have any commitment. Commitment for them is only to get what they want. And if you're not prepared to buy into that, then the relationship's going to fall apart very quickly, because they're going to get angry, they're going to be that spoiled 2-year-old, and the relationship's that'll be the end of the relationship. But if they're getting what they want, then that is their commitment, that they will commit themselves to you because you're doing their bidding. You're feeding their narcissism. You're making them feel on top of the world. You're making them think that the lies that they believe are true as well, and you're reinforcing that narcissistic behaviour. So I hope that helps. I know I've rattled through a lot of stuff there, but I just want you to give you the picture of the severity of the selfishness and the intensity of narcissistic behavior. It's incredibly frustrating because their ability to change is very, very limited, very limited. They don't want to change because why should they? They're perfect. And so dealing with narcissists is extremely frustrating because they can't see anything wrong with themselves. They'll only ever want their own way with everything. And in relationships, obviously, that is completely destructive. So that's what I want you to remember. I want you to remember that narcissists can only love themselves, and they only operate in self-gratification and only want everything to be their own way to reinforce their false beliefs that they are the best at everything, they are successful at everything, and everybody is below them. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope if you are in a relationship where some of these things ring a bell, then start to question how you think and feel about the relationship. What are you like now compared to the beginning of the relationship? Has your self-esteem gone? Has your confidence gone? Do you have less social circles? Is your partner criticising everyone around you, your friends, your family, your work colleagues? Have you heard your partner criticising you to his social circle and tearing you down? Not a healthy thing to do in a relationship. But these are all things that the habits and behaviours of a narcissist. And look at the previous lives that I've done if you want to understand a bit more about that. All I'd encourage you to do is recognise those behaviours and think about where it's going to take you to, because unfortunately there are very, very few U-turns with narcissists, and you either put up with that behaviour and accept the fact that you are going to be completely destroyed from a personality point of view and become a subservient slave who is miserable and lonely, or you can make a decision to break free of those chains and create a better life for yourself. Two options really with a narcissist. That's my experience, and that's what the research says. So have a think about that if you're in that relationship. If you need any advice from me, I've had some wonderful personal messages today, some lovely words, so thank you for those, and some questions as well, which I've answered. If you've got any, then please personal message me. Don't be afraid. I don't bite heads off. I'll tell you what I believe to be the truth based on good sound advice and research. You can make the decisions for yourself. It's not for me to offer opinions. My advice is to try and help you think straight for what is best for you. So give me some thumbs up, give me some thumbs down, give me some comments, and I hope you enjoy these lives. Certainly, people are very responsive in a positive way, so that's really good, and I genuinely hope that these are helping people to get their life in order in some way, shape or form. So thank you for watching. I will catch you up on another Facebook Live, hopefully tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to be yet. If we get more questions about narcissists, we might throw another one in narcissists in. But please don't be afraid to ask me any questions, and I shall look forward to you speaking again. Thanks for watching.